What's going on YouTube? It's Teach back again with another video, and today I'll give you my Baltimore Ravens offseason checklist, and hopefully you will enjoy today's video. If you do, hit that like button. It would help me and my channel out a ton. If you're new to the channel and want to see more football offseason content, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. And of course, most importantly, if you're a Ravens fan or if you're just a fan of the NFL, give me your thoughts on what the Ravens should do this offseason. Where can they get better? How do they improve the roster, both free agency, draft, or by trade? Any resource available, I'd love to have your thoughts down in the comments section. So if you're new to these videos, free agency, you could call it tiered by highest priority to lowest, and with the draft, I'm trying to do it in chronological order. First bullet point being your first rounder, day 2 pretty much in the second, and then your third bullet point, your day 3, your final, gatherings there of the NFL draft. But jumping into it, this is a team that, 8-9. Keep in mind that they lost 6 in a row at the very end of the year. Marlon Humphrey went down with an injury. They were 8-3, didn't win after that. So it's kind of wild how quickly the season shifted for Baltimore. Also, Lamar Jackson injuries, obviously a huge part of that. They do have a lot of draft capital, including a pair of 3s, 4 4s. That feels like good ammunition for them to be able to move back into the third round, or potentially, package a couple of 4s, a 3 to get another second. So this team certainly could be on the move once we get to April. And they don't have a whole lot of cap space, but obviously this is flexible, and we'll see depending on what happens with the draft and whatnot. Marcus Peters, one of the guys on the screen right now, could be expendable. Last year of his deal, he's making a good amount of money. You could obviously restructure other handful of contracts as well. So there are some options, and Baltimore always finds a way, right? They just kind of have this ability about themselves as an organization to structure contracts the right way, be able to push that money forward, and be able to move on from players who just aren't living up to that type of pay either. So they just kind of have an eye for that, when to move on from someone. Not too early, not too late, just in the right spot. Talking about free agency, I like the idea of them re-signing Brandon Williams, or bringing in some nose tackle, equivalent. Maybe it's a Linval Joseph from LA with the Chargers. Michael Pierce potentially could be someone who's on the move from Minnesota. So, finding a nose, maybe it's something you draft to in the, mid to late rounds. Wouldn't hate that idea either. But this team needs to continue. They always have prioritized being able to stop the run. This year was a little bit of a hiccup. It wasn't quite as good in my eyes. So bringing Williams back, hopefully he can stay healthy, or finding his replacement feels like a pretty big priority, especially when you're moving from Wink Martindale into this, more traditional 3-4 defense. I anticipate that nose obviously a big part of it. In the middle, bringing a new center, so kind of the same but different, just on the offensive side. It feels like they've been shuffling guys in and out of the guard spots and center. They can find some consistency on the interior of the offensive line, especially a power running football team. You get J.K. Dobbins back, getting Gus Edwards back. Like, the ability to have good run blocking up the middle feels like it's going to be a huge focus for this team this offseason. And then the last bullet point, bringing a veteran wide receiver, and also obviously these free agent missions, if you will, do coincide and correlate with how much cap. Obviously I'm sure they'd love to bring in Teron Armstead or whatever and have him play right tackle, or they could go chase a DeAndre Hopkins, or whatever. But I'm trying to keep this realistic based off of their cap space. So bringing in a veteran receiver, I threw Emmanuel Sanders there as an option. Who knows? Antonio Brown could be the team that gives him a second chance. Obviously Cousins with Hollywood. I liked what Sammy Watkins, not necessarily as a player. He had some games and he had some decent production, but I felt like this was such a young wide receiver core. Having that anchor of a veteran in Sammy Watkins had to pay dividends for a guy like Rashad Bateman, like a Hollywood Brown, who, Bateman, once he, got a game or two under his, under his feet, the NFL level, he was a pretty solid player, and Hollywood Brown had probably his best year in the NFL, and hey, maybe even in transfers over, and helped, get the most out of Mark Andrews, right? Just being able to play the right way and, maximizing what you have, and, with these players, because this is a talented wide receiver pass catching group. So I feel like having a veteran around obviously just kind of gets a little bit more out of a younger core. Obviously it sounds intuitive. So bringing another veteran in, maybe it's Emmanuel Sanders, maybe it's bringing back Sammy Watkins. I think that's a pretty solid priority to have if you're Baltimore. For the draft, BPA at 14. Now that said, my second bullet point kind of contradicts itself, because best player available at 14 might be David Ojabo. It could be Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State. They might think that's the best player available, and if that's the case, you probably pivot to IOL there in the second round. But at 14, just going with no biases. You could use a corner to replace Marcus Peters long term. You could use interior offensive line. You could use edge. Wouldn't hate a linebacker, depending on what they decide to do with Malik Harrison and Patrick Queen long term. So plenty of options to play with there for Baltimore. So I think this is not a spot where you have to try to force a need into that position. Just go BPA at 14. And then, depending on what happens at 14, like if you go Ojabo at 14 or whatever, maybe instead of going edge in round 2, it's corner and then IOL or something like that. But in my eyes, interior offensive line, edge, corner, some of the biggest needs that immediately come to mind. Obviously, right tackle is a concern, and maybe that is coincided with the interior of the offensive line concerns. I think Patrick McCarry held his own okay at right tackle. It helps having Kevin Zeitler next to him at right guard, but that left guard center spot, I think they can get better at, and that's really where I would focus on the offensive line. And then, again, talking corner, you're going to need a replacement for Marcus Peters. Also, Marlon Humphrey's a good football player, but you're always trying to think 5 years down the line. And then edge, especially leaving the Martindale scheme, where you had players like Tyce Bowser as a very valuable part of that defense because he can drive back and play in zone coverage. It's a different look. You're looking for more traditional outside stand-up rushers, and Bowser can get to the quarterback, but he's not necessarily special in that realm. So I could see them trying to prioritize a pairing with Odafe Owe on that edge spot. And then round 3 onward, look for some good safety options. I think this is a pretty deep class, and it's a position where you can probably find some talent, 4th, 5th round, and it could be someone who maybe not is it a right-away starter, but develops into a player that has a nice role carved out for themselves. This could also be a free agency bullet point. That's a pretty solid free agency class there. So I'm cheating a little bit with the draft free agency mingling, but this team uses, or traditionally has used, a fair amount of safeties. 3 players pretty much rotating in at all times for Wink Martindale. Obviously, that's going to change a little bit. But furthermore, I think you can also just get better than Chuck Clark, Deshaun Elliott. So I think there are some upgrades to be had there in the back end of the secondary. My final notes: stick with the Baltimore way. That BPA at 14 just feels like Baltimore's year in and year out approach. They just always find a way, get good football players, and then they create a way to maximize what they have on the field, right? And they do it quickly, right? Odafe Owe feels like the perfect example. They just found a way to get the most out of him right away when everybody in that last draft class, everyone talking about that class was saying, okay, Odafe Owe is a project. You're probably not going to get a whole lot right away. Baltimore said, nah, forget about that. He's going to be a key contributor right away. So they just have a way. They are a player development factory, and they do it really quickly. So, this is one of those teams where your draft class pretty often can make an impact and be a big part of your success the next year. Can't always say that with a lot of teams, but Baltimore always finds a way, and plus they have an eye for free agency as well. So I think this is a team that's poised to have a bounce-back season next year and could certainly be in the thick of it in the AFC, and certainly could be Super Bowl contenders if they make the right moves. But tell me what you think those right moves are down in the comment section. Where can they improve this roster? I'd love to have your thoughts in the comment section. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit that like button. It would help me and my channel out a ton. If you're new to the channel, want to see more football coverage, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. That's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Tej, and I'm signing off.